Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of TV is Our Real Mom. I'm Dave,
I'm Katie.
and you are listening to our weekly Fargo podcast in which we share our thoughts on the latest episode of Fargo. And finally, here we are at the finale of season 3. We can finally tie it all together and decide, was it worth our time? Was it a good season? Did you enjoy it? What are your thoughts after the finale? What's your general feeling on the season as a whole?
Good.
Yeah, so you felt good about the season,
No,
even
I mean, I was a little shocked when it ended, but I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. Let's back
upon
it up.
reflection,
Let's back it up a little bit. Like, what are your thoughts on the finale episode and how
I
how the
love,
yeah?
I
Go
enjoyed
ahead.
it a lot. And then when the last scene just ended, I audibly said, "What the F?" Because I'm not a fan of open-ended things, just because
Right.
I like closure. But upon reflection, it made sense. And it's nice to know I can't be mad one way or the other. Like it could have gone either way, and it's up to me to decide and my worldview, I guess, on how that all wrapped up. So
Yeah. Yeah, that was my read on it too, and that's what I was going to ask you. The first thing to jump into, I guess, is like, what did you think of how the show ended? And I guess it sounds like you were a little disappointed at first, but then you sort of
I
felt
mean,
like you understood what they were getting at with the meaning of it.
right, the disappointment was a knee-jerk reaction, but
Mhm.
what I love about Fargo is that it does not underestimate anybody's intelligence and ability to take what they will from the story. That's why they leave some things open ended, some things unanswered, because they respect their audience enough to let them go back if they want to watch the rest of the season, pick up what they were laying down, what they were trying to say, and then watch that last scene again. Because if we don't have Fargo again for 3 years or ever, obviously we're going to rewatch the seasons we do have and then draw different conclusions from these episodes. But I thought that the ending was a perfect way to end a season that was based on what reality do you believe? Because what the season's been telling us is that reality is all perception. So what do you perceive is going to happen in this moment?
Right. Yeah. Um, yeah, I was curious what you thought the ending meant because
Are you asking me to pick what I think happened or just how I felt
um
about it?
well, both, and I think you've kind of explained what you think they intended to do with the ending that they
Right.
had. And
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious because yeah, that's actually the same conclusion I came to essentially, is that the whole season's been about perception, and this is them saying, yeah, what do you think happened? Did the good guy win, and Varga goes to jail, and she gets to go to the state fair and have deep fried Snickers bars with her son,
Mm-hmm.
or does the bad guy win, and basically he gets away and all that good stuff? And yeah, it's ultimately like a choose your own adventure. And like you said before, that's exactly what I thought at the end. I was like, what it doesn't this basically say something about your worldview as a
Mm-hmm.
person? Like
Mm-hmm.
what you're inclined to believe happens says something about how you see the world, I think,
Yeah.
which I really liked. I also had that initial disappointment too. Like,
Yep.
you can't help it. It's very interesting too that we talked about this in depth last week
Mm-hmm.
about open-ended stuff and unanswered questions and all that stuff.
Yeah, we
So
did talk about that, didn't we?
yeah. So yeah, go ahead and tell me what happens.
Well, first of all, I think it's important to note that no matter what happens, I think Gloria is going to the state fair with her son. For some reason,
Right.
that struck me as important to remember that. Like, she's on the side of the angels, so she's going to be fine no matter what happens. But I can't help but believe that Gloria is going to be the victor this time. I mean,
Yeah.
she's finally got something to tie him to. Even though technically he didn't murder those 6 guys in the warehouse, he was responsible for their deaths. And she can make the facts line up to prove that he was the guy that killed them, and that's enough to put him away. And I don't think that if Varga is going to get caught doing something on a plane, that he's going to get out of it. Like, how did he have that plotted out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I kind of agree that Gloria wins, and my reason for thinking this has to do with basically the first two seasons. Ultimately, the Gloria type character ends up winning over the villain. So if with all these consistent themes throughout Fargo, like why wouldn't this theme remain consistent? I think we can assume that that theme remains consistent throughout all three seasons, and this time is no different. Gloria is the victor. Varga gets caught. It just took a little bit longer this time.
Varga goes down.
Yeah.
But hey, my prediction that he didn't die was accurate.
That's true. Yep, you nailed that one. And who did I predict wouldn't die?
You picked Sai, and I think he would have been better off dying.
I mean, that's a whole different debate. I mean, you could talk to a lot of people who have loved ones in that situation, and they wouldn't want them dead, you know.
No, that's very true. It's just, it sucks.
But yeah, it's a shitty way to live, you know.
Yeah.
If that happened to you, you know, what would you say? Would you want to be a vegetable? You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was very sad. Very, very
really
sad. What did he had one more line, and didn't I say we'd get one more? He would talk one more time.
Do you think he'll ever speak again? And you said yeah. And
I guess
technically you were right. Yeah.
Yes. So
heartbreaking, but
I think he said good as new.
Oh.
He's like good as new.
He even sounded Sai like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bummer, but
that was interesting. I liked. I mean, I didn't like it, but I liked it. You know what they did with him.
It was Fargonian.
Yeah.
At least they held true to themselves in that sense.
Yeah. So do you think Emmett got what he deserved? Like, did he deserve to get whacked 5 years later?
That's an interesting thing to discuss, because was Nikki correct in pursuing Emmett as the one who deserved her wrath, or wrath of a vengeful god?
I don't know. I think perhaps he did because of his confession to Gloria in the police station, how he'd been killing Ray for so many years, and that was just the final blow. So if you look at that as a confession from himself that like he's been killing his brother this whole time, maybe that's true. Maybe he has been murdering Ray for 30 years in this.
Yeah.
He is the right person to go after.
One of the right people to go after.
Yeah. Although we talked a lot about how Ray couldn't let it go, and that's all he needed to do. You know?
Yeah, he very well could have just moved on and let it go.
Kind of brought it on himself in a way.
But I enjoyed how at first I was wondering, why did Mr. Wrench wait 5 years to do this? But then upon thinking about it more, I thought about the scripture passage that the bowling alley guy told to Nikki about the eagle, though thou exalt thyself. And then I thought about how Emmett was finally in a place where he had $20 million socked away. He was done with his probation. He was back with his wife. Sai was back at his table. Everything was good. He was, amongst the eagles again or whatever. And that's when Mr. Wrench chose to take him out.
Right, yeah. No, that's a good point. He sort of waited until everything was good in his life again. Because, I mean, if he had done this while he was at the bottom, that kind of
exactly, because he even Emmett even says, I'm as low as I can be, and that's not when you want to get him. You want to get him when he's high.
Right. And I'm curious, like, did Swango show any sign when he said that was like disappointing to her, that he was at his lowest? I think she didn't really care. She almost wanted him to be as low as possible before she killed him, so he could experience like the deepest levels of sorrow in existence before she takes him out.
Whereas Wrench kind of took the opposite approach, because when he's looking at the pictures on the fridge, you can see on his face, like, it's not smug, but it's just like, golly gee, I'm so happy and I'm so lucky in such a good place. And then bam.
Yeah, he thought he had sort of like gotten away with it and gotten through it, but
Mhm.
nope, it still caught up with him. No,
Yeah.
that's a really good catch. I don't think I thought of that. That the thou exalt thyself like the eagle thing. That, I mean, that makes perfect sense. That's a really nice tie in there.
Were you disappointed with the way that Swango went out? Because she kind of was trying to, deliver that justice upon him, and she couldn't get the words out, and she got caught by the cop, and she ends up killing an innocent cop, and then she dies, and it got a little muddy there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is a little bit disappointing. I mean, as such like a powerful woman character, I don't know, like I feel like everybody's sort of rooting for a character like that, and for her to go out in such like a lackluster kind of way, just like shooting each other, and it was, yeah, just very, Fargo is awesome with this, the imagery of just like Emmett in the middle and then those two on either side. I guess it was like kind of funny in a way, but yeah, kind of disappointing. And I figured you, of all people, would be really disappointed by this.
Yeah, I was upset when I saw, and shocked when I saw that it got her too. At first, I was upset because she killed an innocent cop, and I was like, well, that kind of screws things up, because how can you be righteous when you're killing innocent, law-abiding, or upholders of the law,
Yeah.
But
She
at
had
the same
obviously
time, it
gotten.
also seemed like she kind of lost sight maybe of the real mission. She couldn't say the words, and she got thrown off. And she'd been so badass up to that point. Like, most of the characters in a season of Fargo don't get a happy ending, and I kind of sensed, Wrench or Nikki was going to, I thought it would be Wrench, was going to meet some type of unhappy ending, but I didn't think it would be her.
Yeah, I guess you're right. If you think about it from the point of view of Fargo, how things go for main characters like Swango, there was no happy ending in sight, really. I mean, it wasn't going to end good.
No, and all
Wrench
she cared
Wrench
about
wasn't
was,
the one. Wrench was. I feel like if you really think about it, Wrench is the obvious one to make it through, and Swango's the obvious one to come
yeah,
to
he's invincible when it comes to seasons of Fargo. So, but I thought, did you notice when they showed her body and then they kind of faded away from it, that the instrument playing was a clarinet, like the cat?
The clarinet was the cat. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I actually didn't notice that, but very,
Well, that
very
was
good.
your call that was going to carry through the rest of the season, and you were right.
Right, and I do think that was going on more than I even
Yeah.
noticed because I had kind of forgotten about it.
Again,
But
something repeated viewings would. That's
right,
what's great about this show. You'll catch stuff a second time over.
yeah, watch it again, and I bet you'll hear through the whole season, even before they tell you Peter and the Wolf stuff is going on.
Yeah.
You'll probably hear those instruments
What?
playing.
How does Peter and the Wolf end again?
Um, I think they I think they get the wolf, like somebody shoots the wolf. No, Peter's like up in a tree and he uses somebody as bait. Like he used the bird as bait. And then they use a rope and they catch the wolf by a rope or something like that. And grandfather has the last word. And it's not good as new. I don't think. So
darn.
Yeah, the tie-ins
there are parallels there.
Yeah,
There's
maybe
parallels there.
maybe a little bit. I don't know.
So, okay, this is something I've been thinking about, and maybe one of the bigger messages that this season was perhaps driving home. So Varga's ultimate goal was to infiltrate this company, kind of bring it down from the inside whilst lining the pockets of the partners, being Varga, Cy, and Emmett. And then all they can bleed it out and then sell it for a fraction of the cost. And then when the IRS guy and Gloria are talking, Gloria asks if that's illegal. And he basically says no, as long as you pay your taxes, which they didn't. But that was the only thing about what they did that wasn't legal. So, I mean, what are they trying to say there? Because think of all the little people in Emmett's company that just got completely screwed. and then Emmett, Cy, and Varga get away with all this money. Emmett gets 2 years probation. That's it for
But
what
he's
he
in.
did.
Well, he was in a shit ton of debt. But if he just listened to what Goldfarb told him to do, he would basically he would get out of it
Right.
and he had his money in whatever accounts, offshore
Offshore
or whatever.
accounts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
He
yeah.
was able to weasel out of it.
Right.
Whereas all
Yeah.
the people that worked for his company got completely screwed.
Well, maybe just lost their jobs or something. I mean, they're
Or
not.
pensions or disabilities. Like this is,
Yeah, stuff like that for sure.
and that's just
Um,
like, I mean, they're so nonchalant about like how, oh, it's not illegal. It's just you have to pay the government and it's
right.
fine.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, that's pretty similar to the real world. I mean,
I
like,
know. Like, what are they trying to say? Because I don't have a firm enough grasp on like the economy, and I know something really shitty happened, and they're trying to say something important, but
I
I
don't
don't
know.
feel like I have the
The
tools to
closest
grasp it.
me neither. I mean, but the closest thing I can come up with is basically like just because something is legal doesn't mean it's moral.
Right.
The lines between legality and morality are blurry and they're not one and the same, like
Hmm.
yeah, the state and morality are two different things. And maybe that's the biggest message there. I don't know. That's the best I can read into it.
Well, it makes sense. I'll
Yeah.
buy it.
Yeah.
I'll buy it. I
So,
just
I
thought it
mean, it
would.
was like we just talked about this earlier today when we were visiting about how in 2008 when the economy went into a recession or whatever with the crash of the housing market or whatever,
Mhm.
bankers still took $20 million bonuses,
Yeah.
and they're the ones that were responsible for the crash. So the
Yeah.
people who were responsible for screwing over like Americans,
The little
hardworking
guy.
Americans, ruining their lives, and tons of people. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not sure what the percentage of Americans that were affected greatly by this, but I know it was a lot of people.
Mhm.
And the people responsible for this were rewarded with $20 million bonuses.
And then go to jail. Like, do
No,
you ever hear
nothing.
of any of them spending time in jail?
No, there was no justice.
They're on
Yeah,
yachts right now, still.
like not only did they could have said, you know, don't get bonuses because you guys messed up royally. You don't get a bonus. Instead, they said your bonuses are capped at $20 million. So they put a cap on it at 20 million, but they shouldn't have had bonuses at all. They were rewarded for screwing over
The
many
country.
the country. Basically, they attacked. Yeah, essentially, they attacked our country and got rewarded for it.
Economic terrorism.
Yeah. So that's just a really recent, relatively recent, strong example of how like you can do things by like red tape and legal stuff, but it's totally beyond immoral. It's
Hmm.
evil.
Like Varga.
Yeah, exactly. So
Did we ever find out what VM stands for? We didn't, did we?
I don't think so. Didn't someone say like I think I have an idea, and
Yeah,
then
but they didn't say what it
they didn't
was.
say who
Maybe
was
that's
that?
part
Do
of
you
the
remember?
illusion. Like he's nothing. He was just a guy. Was he hired by Goldfarb? Was she pulling his strings, or was he like a hired assassin she brought in to do this?
Dude, that's a
Or
really good question. I haven't really had time to analyze that, but yeah, I'm not really sure. It could be either way, I suppose. Where it's
because
never
her when he came in after the takeover had happened, that Goldfarb was like costume wise a completely different person than the one we saw before.
right. He obviously was dressing up like I hate to say this, but wait, were they Jewish? Maybe they weren't Jewish. Maybe I'm getting my Cohen.
Goldfarb was, but I don't know that I'd say anything about her costume was. I mean, she was a rich widow,
Well,
and
I was
that's
thinking
how
of
she
like
dressed.
Cy. I was thinking of like Cy and Emmett, and like I thought maybe she was like playing up the Jewish like costume, like to play to those guys. But I don't remember what these characters. I'm thinking like Cohen brothers, like
Maybe.
a simple man. They seem to have a lot of Jewish. Well, the whole season and this whole season had
Oh
Jewish
yeah, and a lot of
stuff going
Jewish
on.
mysticism and lore and things like that. And Cy certainly was Jewish, and Varga made him feel
Right.
shitty
So
about
I
that.
thought maybe Goldfarb was playing this character, this sort of like Jewish woman to like
Mhm.
draw them in a little more. Right.
Yeah,
Does
maybe
that
that
make
wasn't
sense?
even her name.
Right.
Maybe
Yeah.
it was just an alias to get someone Sai felt good about. Yeah, because turns out if Sai would have succeeded in selling this to Goldfarb, he would have just been selling it to Varga anyway, right?
Yeah, I think so. So like what is Narwhal then? Is that a real company or is it just it's
No,
just
it
a
was.
name?
It's set. Didn't they say something about it? It was something about it doesn't have a corporate ID number,
Oh, yeah, it's just
something like that.
it's just smoke and mirrors basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So who said not sure what the VM stands for? I think that was the IRS guy, right?
Probably.
Yeah, when he was on the phone.
LaRue.
Yeah, so
That was his
that's
name.
how the episode starts out is
Uh-huh.
Gloria is resigning as deputy
Mm-hmm.
and she gets a call from the IRS guy telling her that he got he thinks the stuff came from her, the evidence and
Because
whatnot.
Nikki put a note in there saying contact Gloria Burgle.
Right. So yeah, that's how they get together and start to sort all of this out.
Right.
Uh,
So
sorry, just recapping a little bit there.
that's okay. Yeah, that's how
Just-
the episode started. And then you
yeah.
had that warehouse scene was intense. Like I didn't know how that was gonna go. I thought Wrench and Nikki could die. I thought Mimo was definitely gonna die. But I didn't know what was gonna happen to Varga. And where did he go? Was he naked up in the rafters? Like what was happening?
Yeah, I forgot that his outfit was like on the ground. I did remember that the top of the elevator was open, and so he obviously like climbed up there.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as why he took his clothes off, that one blows my mind. Is that like a supernatural thing going on? Or are they trying to say he's
Something
like,
to do with the wolf?
did he turn into a wolf or something?
I don't know. But who sent him the message saying that the IRS had the documents? Because Nikki was waiting for him. So it made me believe she didn't send it.
I thought that was Goldfarb, maybe.
Oh yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah,
Makes a lot of sense.
that was my theory at the time, was that it was Goldfarb, and that was before we even found out that she was actually in on it. But
we didn't know who did it.
Your theory that from last week that she was the one that in the preview they were talking about, that's what led me to believe Goldfarb was the one who sent the text, because I was like, oh, I bet Katie's right about that,
That does make sense. I don't know why I didn't think of that, because at first I thought Nikki sent something, but then I was like, no, she's waiting for him, and that screwed everything up. Like she couldn't kill him because he got away.
I kind of like the idea that like Varga is actually a wolf. And he like he turned that's what I mean. He like
full moon.
He turned into a wolf and he like jumped up the elevator.
Maybe there's something there, like a wolf in sheep's clothing, and he shed the sheep's clothing and became the wolf. But thinking of him naked running through the rafters like really gives me the heebie-jeebies. And he also
I think of like groundskeeper Willie in The Simpsons when he's like he has to go through the air ducts and he gets naked and he's like, grease me up, and like that's what I think.
Or Chang from Community.
Oh yeah, he does the same thing.
The air duct.
Yeah.
But then when they caught him 5 years later, he had a different name, but he was wearing like the same outfit, wasn't he? He looked exactly the same.
Right. I mean, he's still doing the same old thing, just different aliases, I guess.
So I feel like we've missed something.
Oh, I'm sure we did.
Well, the beginning part when like Emmett steals Mimo's gun and he points it at Mimo, and then Varga feeds him the line about how there's fingerprint technology on the gun, which was complete BS. Like, and then Emmett passes out while they go meet up with Nikki and Wrench to drop the money. And then he wakes up with a stamp on his head. How did that get there? And who put it there?
I don't know.
Was it the stamp?
I mean,
it looked like the stamp.
I mean, the stamp was in the frame that, ultimately killed Ray, right?
Hmm. I'm sure
So
they reframed it.
so it wasn't in there anymore, so somebody stuck it on his head. I mean, maybe we could just assume that like Varga slapped it on his head before they left as sort of like an insult, like here's your stupid stamp. But I mean, that
Maybe.
doesn't seem like something Varga would do. I mean, maybe like
When he passed out, it wasn't there. It was when he woke up. But if Nikki and Wrench were already on their way over,
yeah, maybe they were already there, but then why didn't she kill him when they were there?
she messed with his car, apparently, because his car broke down and then she came creeping up behind him.
Oh, yeah, so I would say yeah, maybe it was
She had to have
Nikki
been
then.
there.
Yeah, she put the stamp on his head and then messed with his car, I think.
So I bet Wrench went out there first and then Nikki went later because she didn't show up until the end of the showdown, whatever you want to call it. She had her little message boy, you know. I
Okay.
don't know. I
That
mean, it
makes
doesn't
sense.
matter. I was just wondering
Okay.
how the stamp got there.
So after I think this is while Gloria's talking to the IRS guy,
Yeah.
she she tries to like issue a volo or a bolo. Did you catch that?
No.
I was trying to figure out I was sitting there trying to figure out what that meant, what that stood for.
What did she say?
Maybe I can just go Google it, but she I don't know, she's on the walkie-talkie or phone or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
talking to the police station. She's like, "Put out a volo for blah blah blah, or we're gonna have to put a bolo on her." Or who is she after? Swango, Varga? I
She's
can't
after.
remember.
She sees pictures of Wrench, Swango, and Varga, and I think
Yeah,
she's really after Varga.
and she said something like issue or put out a bolo, and I was like trying to figure out what that meant, but I couldn't come
Hmm.
up with it. So I thought maybe you might know.
Couldn't tell you. Sounds like cop terminology to me, and I certainly don't know other than like 10-4. Roger that.
10-4, Roger that. Here, let me Google it quick. I'm curious.
You got me. I know there's a thing called a bolo tie, which is a pretty sweet little Western neckwear that was popular in the 90s.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. It's an
Yep.
acronym and it stands for Be on the Lookout.
Uh,
So she put out a basically keep an eye out for these guys. And that's why probably
mm-hmm,
Swango gets pulled over,
mm-hmm.
or Swango and Emma get pulled over by the one
Yeah.
cop because they're already looking for them.
Well, they're looking for Swango. I don't think anyone.
No one's looking for Emmett. Maybe
Well,
not. Yeah.
she wanted to warn him, but she didn't quite get to him before Swango did. But again, Emmett is just kind of this innocent bystander. Not innocent, but like he's a bystander of these terrible crimes, an unwilling instigator of these terrible crimes, but he's unwilling to stay behind and face the consequences.
Yeah, I love the part when Swango's like, kind of putting the pressure on him, and he's like, I didn't mean to, and she's like, oh, you didn't mean to. See you later, then. And then she like, that part
I
made me laugh.
didn't mean to.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that was a weak argument.
then she tells Emmett that Ray's a kitten now.
Yeah, she kind of lost it after that. She was like, he's a kitten now. If she hadn't said that, she could have just. But then the cops still would have found her because he had to have been close, and I doubt she would have gotten away in time. So, but Mr. Wrench, he always manages to slip away.
Right.
With
Right.
money. Mr. Wrench made out like a bandit in that little scenario.
I don't think he cared. I don't think he wanted the money either.
I don't either. It
I think
sucks
he just
because
wanted to do whatever Swango did, and in his mind, he thought her motive was probably the money. It
yeah.
almost seemed like he was a little surprised
Mm-hmm.
when he realizes, oh, she was after Emmett this whole time. Like it wasn't about money. It was about revenge.
I felt bad for him because it was so sad. Even though they were hitmen, it was sad in the first season when he lost his, friend. And then especially when you find out in season 2 that they were lifelong friends. So, and then that puts in perspective how great that loss was in season 1. And now he lost his new partner in crime. So I just, Mr. Wrench survives, but at what cost?
Right. Yeah. Poor Wrench can never get someone to stick. Well, I guess his other partner was with him for a really long time, so
most of his life, and he'll always have that dope fringe jacket. So,
hells yeah, he'll always have that.
yep, that will never die.
What else is there?
How do you feel?
I like the real quick. Sorry, I like the quote when Gloria pulls over the school bus, talks to her son.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is a pretty sums up a lot of the season. She says the world doesn't always make a lot of sense, but how we get through is we stick together.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of ties up a lot of the season, I feel like. So that was a nice quote for the end.
Yeah, what do you think the season was trying to say as a whole? Like, what's your take on it?
Well, that was like that was a big one. There were a lot of different themes, and we've talked about them all season long.
True. Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things the season was trying to say. But that was one of the biggest ones, I think, was that we talked a lot about perception this season. And it's a lot about the world doesn't look the same anymore. Like the world's changing. Like this isn't the world I know. Why is the world so messed up? And
it's
sort
wrong.
of like
this is like the world I know, but it's not.
Yeah, and I don't feel real. Like, do I even exist? Because I don't recognize the world, and sort of, but like the way we deal with it is like we stick together. Like when we collide, atoms flying through, particles flying through the randomness. When we collide, we stick together. We become real, and we have real experiences, and we bring meaning to our existence. That's what I think this season's trying to say.
Okay, I can get down with that. Were you disappointed that the little device thingy never reappeared?
I guess, yeah. Like, let's talk about that. This is a good time to talk about that. Things, yeah, unanswered things that, big question marks of the season.
My biggest thing is apparently Maurice really did glue that guy's face shut.
I guess. Yeah, that was one thing we talked about, was like, can we get an answer as to, exactly who did the murders, like definitively? So yeah, I guess it was Maurice did that.
He was just so high, he didn't realize what he was doing, or
he just had a weird way of expressing it to Ray and Swango at that one moment. But
like we said in the recap of the first episode, like he clearly had the ability to go criminal like pretty quickly, as we saw, after the turn.
Yeah, that gas station, the way he attacked that attendant.
Right.
He obviously had violent tendencies,
And then how he so quickly turned it on Nikki and Ray and said, "You're going to give me this amount of money or else."
Yeah, didn't he pull a gun?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's obviously crazy.
But if he had a gun, why didn't he just shoot Ennis Stussy instead of gluing his freaking nose and mouth shut?
Yeah, that's a weird one. I mean, how... I mean, I've seen people smoke herb, and I've never seen anyone smoke so much they wanted to glue someone's mouth shut. I mean...
Well, you've also never seen someone high off their ass while they were trying to commit a robbery, I guess.
Yeah, maybe things go a little crooked in that situation.
Seems like it could.
But yeah, like there's a few things that didn't really get answered. I mean, like you said, that device never came back, so that was sort of a one-off, I guess.
Maybe it was just to show us that Gloria was the robot, because the robot had the device in his head and she took it, basically.
And she had like a literal device
there
with her. Yeah.
We never saw her shut it off, but maybe more symbolically we did.
You can't shut it off, right? I mean, because when you hit the switch, it turns itself off. Isn't that what it does?
Whoa, is that like a snake eating its own tail?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's an infinite loop. Exactly. You can't.
That went to a level I'm not ready to approach.
But that's what's so crazy about that device. The device itself is a mind F. Like,
I didn't even think about that.
You mean when I hit the switch, it just turns itself off? Like it's like Buddhist shit. Like you could meditate on that. Like.
I might have forever. That's crazy.
It's one of those things. Well, like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Sounds like this.
We used to do that in grade school,
Katie's
remember?
doing it. Katie's doing it. She got it. But yeah, I think that's actually that's kind of what they were saying with that device. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. That's crazy. That's cool.
Yeah.
So now I appreciate it. It didn't need to come back. Like I just needed to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah. What about the? Were there any connections with the author? I always forget his name. He has a crazy
Thaddeus Mobley.
Thaddeus Mobley. That might be one of the upcoming names of one of our cousins' frogs, I guess.
Thaddeus. Well, he has a wife.
Yeah.
No, I think that was covered in the penultimate episode, episode 9, when she finally confessed to Winnie how she was feeling and how that trip to LA was still sticking with her.
So just the significance of it was just the trip and sort of like what it meant to her and like how it stuck in her head.
Yeah. Sure. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd have to
and I think
that.
ultimately Thaddeus Mobley was Ennis Stussy. There's no weird twist there.
He just aged terribly.
Yeah, because he's an alcoholic.
And clearly like racked with guilt over what he'd done. So yeah, I can see that. But still, looks really bad for the age he was supposed to be.
Any other burning questions that were unanswered, or?
I mean, those are the only ones that I came to mind. If I thought about it more, I'd probably think of something. But no, I think they really did a good job of tying things together. And I really liked this season of Fargo a lot. I mean, I'd probably put it up there. I might put it, I don't know.
I'd put it in the top 3 seasons of Fargo.
I think, I was going to say, I think it might be my favorite. But that's just because I always feel kind of meh about the endings. And at least this ending was different.
Gave you something to chew on.
And it might take 3 years till the next one comes out for me to figure out exactly what it means. But that's the nice thing about Fargo, is as you change, maybe how you see the show will change too. And as the American society changes, we can reflect upon this show that was made at a particular moment in time and see what it says about the world at the time.
Yes.
But I was going to say something else.
What did Varga mean when he said the past is unpredictable?
It means people continually change how they interpret the past to suit their own needs.
Right, and you can speak to that. I mean, you have a master's in history, so can you?
There's a lot of.
Can you give a quick breakdown of how that plays into like revisionist history and the past?
All history is revisionist because whoever writes history is choosing to tell a particular story, is choosing to interpret the research they see in a way that engages the reader intellectually, sometimes emotionally, usually emotionally, actually. And so what you're reading, you can never fully trust. What you're reading is someone's presentation of that event. So history is storytelling, basically.
Yeah. It's just, and that was a big theme of the season too, wasn't it? Was storytelling.
Yeah.
Like Varga always had.
And I liked how Emmett finally had enough. He was like, quit with your stories. It's all a bunch of lies. Yeah. Like I was like, how did it take you this freaking long to figure that out? But
yeah. Nice.
But he finally did. He's slow to just a little bit behind everybody, but somehow escaping them until Mr. Wrench found him.
Yes, indeed. So you kind of gave your final thoughts on the season. I guess I sort of did at the beginning of the episode.
Sure.
But I guess I liked this season overall. I still kind of feel like I like season 2 the best so far. I don't know, maybe that'll change.
Season 2 is dope.
I don't know. Something about it. I liked it.
I love Hansi.
Yeah, Hansi's the man.
Can we talk about when they got into the elevator at the warehouse and the drum beat kicked in, Mr. Wrench's drum beat, and you just knew. You were like, it's over. They're dead.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
They're so good with the music. And that's one thing I always notice about movies and television shows. And one of the reasons, honestly, one of the reasons Lost is so good is because of the music. And ever since then, I've, taken notice of score in these epic television shows like Fargo and Game of Thrones and, the
Right.
big ones.
Does Game of Thrones do good with music?
Oh,
Pretty sure it
yeah.
does. Yeah, I think I remember like a scene from one of the last couple episodes of last season.
The
Something epic happens.
the very first scene of the season finale of season 6 where I can't think of the name, the sept, the great sept.
Without spoiling too much.
Yeah, it's a big scene and the music makes it. It really sells.
Yeah, no, and I think like it was so good. It was one of those things where like people who love music like myself, I'm a musician, and people like you who grew up musically and like you said, you really pay attention to that stuff.
Mhm.
We notice it, but I think like everybody noticed like, wow, the music at that part was amazing. You know?
It really told the story, and that's like a whole 8-minute piece on the soundtrack, but you listen to the whole thing and it
just fits it fits so well.
Yeah, and it was different from most Game of Thrones music, not to get into a whole other show, but I mean, they use
too late for that
stuff. But
are we gonna podcast on Game of Thrones?
Well, everybody does, but to me, there's no show I get more amped about. Like when I watch Game of Thrones, I sit on the floor in front of the TV like a child. Like that's how into Game of Thrones I am. So
yeah, I mean the market.
No one watches these videos except for our awesome loyal fans who we super appreciate, but might as well.
Yeah, I mean the market for that is for podcasting about Game of Thrones is super saturated. But yeah, like if we really enjoy the show and we want to talk about it, and we're going to talk about it anyways,
might
as well put it on camera and share it.
Yeah, why
not? But we'll have a lot of other shows probably going on at the same time. So I mean, I guess we'll just have to podcast more, Catie.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it is. So I mean, yeah,
Fargo's over. So
we're trying to catch up with Alone now because we haven't started on that, and we're already 2 episodes in. We need to get that done before the next one airs.
Yeah. Well, how many episodes are in a season of that? Usually like 12, 13?
I think it's less than that usually. I think it's 10. Maybe season 1 was longer, but
okay.
I think they're like 10 episodes.
Yeah, maybe we'll try to get that done tomorrow night, do a double whammy.
Yeah, so we got to catch up on Alone, and then I mean there was talk of maybe doing a Big Brother podcast, but that's
here's our pitch for the Big Brother podcast.
Yeah, here's the pitch.
Me bitching about it because any Big Brother fans out there know that it's a show that inspires a lot of mixed reaction. There's a lot to love and there's a lot to hate. And so David doesn't watch it, but he is interested in the game, the strategy and stuff. So if we do it, which we haven't fully decided yet, it'd be once a week at the most, but it would be me bitching to David about all the shitty stuff going on in Big Brother and some good stuff too, because I'm sure good things will happen. And then him, putting his spin on it, giving me his feedback on it. And it'd be kind of cool because if you don't watch it, you don't know these people and you don't have the extreme opinions of them that people who watch the show usually have. So it'd be like getting an unbiased
thoughts. I mean, it'll be worth a try. Like it'll be interesting to see if it works because I mean, it does sound kind of silly that you're going to talk about it and you're not going to even watch it. Like how are you going to have anything to say? And that's a fair argument. Maybe I won't have anything to say about it because I won't have any clue what's going on. But, I think maybe it'll be mostly something where you can sound off and share your thoughts, and maybe I'll throw something in. Also, though, I might even still listen to like RHAP.
They have he has great correspondence for that show. So
yeah, well, I just enjoy listening to their discussions on that podcast. So like I might just put that on for
background
fun
noise.
anyways, not even watching the show. That might give me some idea, something to go off, so
it's an experiment and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So that, I mean, you got Alone, you got Big Brother. If we do that, And yeah, if we'd be cool to throw Game of Thrones in there too.
Dude, that would be, I don't, that's not even work to me. That's just
Yeah,
talking
that'd be
about
fun.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe we can find ways to expedite the process of doing the podcast. I mean, maybe we'll have to make some of these shorter or something.
You know what we should do
That's
is
the
do
biggest
an
problem is
instant.
finding time to do these is really tough for us, but we do
Don't you think
enjoy
we
it.
should do like an instant reaction to Game of Thrones? I feel like that would be cool.
Yeah, just like
Right after.
not analyze it too much, just talk about it.
And then we'll be at our most excited at that point, or mad.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, we could keep it to like 20 minutes to half an hour, and then it
Right.
wouldn't take up so much time. I love doing deep dives, like hour-long podcasts. I love that. But yeah, just if we do hour-long podcasts of every show, it's just tough to find that time in a week when you have a job, you know?
It is. And in the summertime, I work on weekend evenings. So that's usually when we do these things. So it cuts into things, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll sort it out.
Something out there.
Yeah, just thought we'd share the goings-ons with whoever's listening for fun. So, but yeah, pretty good season of Fargo. I'm pleased.
The performances were out of the park.
There's a lot to like about the season. I mean, my favorite part about the season, I love all the symbolism. That's my favorite stuff, is like, what does it all mean, and like kind of expressing ideas in interesting ways. And like nobody does it as good as the Coen brothers. And I mean, are the Coen brothers involved with these seasons?
They're not. But Noah Hawley is good.
They're just but I mean, I feel like they're so inspired by the Coen brothers. It's like,
of course,
it's very much the same thing. And it's like, yeah, and that guy, Noah Hawley, is that it?
Yeah. HAWLEY.
He's good. And yeah, it's just I love the symbolism and the expressing the ideas in interesting ways.
People who take the time to make a television show, and I say this all the time about Fargo, but to make it like a work of art, like so artistically done, and every episode's different. A different way of expressing the artistic element of the show is different in every episode. When it comes to music, like camera shots, the words they say, like it's one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah, and we got plenty of that this season. I mean, say what you will about like how you felt about the plot and the characters. I mean, we're still getting that backdrop of Fargo, Coen brothers style artistic expression. And since we got that, I mean, you can't really complain too much.
And if like a season of Fargo isn't good enough for you television wise, then your standards are too high.
Yeah, go home. Or your standards are too low. Like you watch, like what pleases you is garbage, and you can't see quality
value
for what it is.
True.
Something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, you've got a point there.
Okay, well, I think that will do it for this episode of the podcast. Putting a bow on the season 3 of Fargo here. Definitely was fun podcasting with you all season, Catie. We just talked about all the stuff coming up. We appreciate anyone who's been listening. Honestly, we do this anyways. Catie and I just talk about TV shows, so that's why we decided to do this podcast. So like if you listen, that's just cool. That's just like icing on the cake. So yeah, you can follow us on Twitter at TV is our real mom. And what else? Oh yeah, like comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for listening. Have a good one.
Bye.